Ashes of Creation just had a major announcement in one of their most recent live streams. One that we've been waiting for a while now, pretty much all year. But perhaps it was the discussion of the Bard that was the most important and most intriguing part of that big live stream with that announcement. So honestly, we can just get that silly little announcement out of the way and just talk about the Bard because it sounds good. Like, really good, perhaps. Ashes of Creation's Alpha 2 test will be beginning in October of this year. This will finally give fans of the game, or perhaps more accurately the game's development, as well as those who have pinned a lot of their hopes on this game, bringing some new blood into the MMORPG genre in a way that is as close to a AAA MMO as honestly an indie studio can get. Because honestly, and I really hope that there's no like backtracking or anything on this, through multiple instances throughout the year, it has been referred to that there will be no NDA for Alpha 2. Obviously, things change, and that could change, but hopefully that stays true because this is a very important thing, I think, for just in general with these types of MMO. I think when you're looking at an MMO that is crowdfunded, an MMO that is relying on the funding of people that are engaged and interested in the product, you really have to be a lot more transparent than you might need to be if you were, say, Throne and Liberty that still had NDAs, or New World, which just had a closed beta with an NDA and will be launching in a couple months. I think when you're having a more open development, the NDA feels a bit more archaic. And yes, I totally get the concerns of the developers of they don't want to show off a game in an unfinished state with unfinished art assets, with issues with bugs that are probably not going to be there at launch. They don't want to show the game when it's still being worked on, which is a totally understandable thing because, well, we react to that and we get upset and mad at UI elements, at all kinds of things. But I still think not having an NDA is important. And hopefully we get to see that very, very soon. And hopefully I will be able to play with you soon as I backed Ashes of Creation back at the beginning of the year. Yeah, largely because I wanted to be able to cover it. Alpha 2's exact day in October wasn't revealed yet, but it doesn't sound like we're gonna have to wait that long to get those further details, as it will be announced in the upcoming stream on August 16th, along with a look at some of the new content that will be coming in the Alpha 2 build. So for now, plan on sometime in October, but before that, you have August 16th to get those details ironed out. One of the things we do know about Alpha 2 though is that the Bard Archetype will be playable, which is obviously going to be music to people's ears. The Bard has been an interesting class across MMORPG genres for decades. For many, the ideal Bard may have been the EverQuest Bard, a support specialist who could crowd control, increase your movement speed, increase your resource regeneration, and greatly increase your combat capabilities. They were essentially a multiplier and the kind of class welcome in every group and every raid. Other bards though have gotten their due from huge passionate fan bases of that specific class, from vanguards which could compose their own songs to Final Fantasy XIV with their ranged bard class. MMOs all across the landscape had versions of bards and people have their favorites, swearing that that bard is the best bard ever created in an MMO. You obviously can tell my bias is the EverQuest Bard. I don't think that's surprising for me personally, but your favorite may honestly be, like, say, the Lord of the Rings Online Minstrel. The fact is that it is a class that has a lot of people that really love it, but is actually potentially a little bit underserved in the MMORPG genre, as the only huge MMO that seems to have one is Final Fantasy XIV. Although when they added in the Evoker into World of Warcraft, it was kind of seen as a sort of bard in some ways, not in class fantasy, but is specifically in how it impacted gameplay. But I bring up that bias towards the bard of the EverQuest Bard specifically because that's how I was approaching the bard in Ashes of Creation. Basically, I was comparing it to this, and I think many of you will compare this bard class to whatever bard is your cup of tea. So that's kind of where I was at. Like, is it going to be a class that is able to be a multiplier for the rest of the group? Is it going to be a true support class? A class that can fill different roles, just perhaps not as well as some other classes, but can really just bring forth that class fantasy of being a bard as well? Or would it just be a musical DPS? Or perhaps even just a healer that strums a couple tunes? And honestly, I left more impressed than I expected I would.
Yeah, I think it's not set too high, but yeah, like Tried saying, we're still our knockbacks.
Yeah, impulse is kind of what that's called for pushes and pulls. Please don't kill me.
Oh.
Wow. You're corrupted now.
Oh no!
Oh no!
The first 20 minutes or so of the stream was them going over each and every ability of the Bard, and it had me really thinking of that EverQuest Bard, as they talked about melodies, which are these ongoing buffs, large persistent AoE buffs and debuffs that may add movement speed or provide you with passive healing or a passive life tap type ability. But one of the cool things about those melodies was talking specifically about the passive healing melody. It was a melody that not only gave passive health regeneration, but also acted as a bonus to healing from other sources. Something that EverQuest did eventually add into their game, but much later, like towards the back half of their expansions. Something that was really leaning into the support side of things. This Bard can heal in a pinch, but the Bard can also enhance the heals of a healer. Unlike the EverQuest Bard though, which made weaving of songs essentially a base function, it sounds like there's a choice to be made in Acts of Creation through their skill tree, utilizing a choice between powering up your melody over time, encouraging you to use a single melody, or a choice called Counterpoint, which allows you to weave 2 of the melodies every 20 seconds. Initially, I wasn't sure about this, but they did mention that there is potential as they go into testing that they may expand this ability to weave to more melodies, or perhaps even grant it to all bards to allow all bards to weave melodies. So it definitely still is something there that's like considered a work in progress, I believe, but this is what they'll at least be going with for now. And as someone who loved weaving songs as a bard in EverQuest 1 rather than just letting them sit active like in EverQuest 2, I'm kind of hopeful they lean into weaving, though making it a conscious choice, well, that's honestly not a bad idea either. It's a tactical decision on how you want to play your bard and how you want to function in game. I don't think player choice is a bad thing. I just think it's difficult to balance. But the bard is actually quite a bit more than just melodies. They have another like kind of skill tree type thing called dances. But before we talk about the dances, you just got to see this, because not just see, you have to see and hear this, because it's one of the things that I think is going to make a lot of people kind of like leave this stream of the Bard for Ashes of Creation a little bit more blown away than they may have expected, because they have done a lot of work on the animations and the sound.
Or something.
Yeah. So it's a decent little chunk of health, or temp health, that is. But the downside of this one is that it's only a 5-meter range, so it's basically melee range. So that's why you really need Flourish to, There we go.
Oh my god.
So
Tori, I love the sound of that. Holy smokes.
Thanks so much.
That is so good.
Absolutely one of my favorites from the whole set.
That's just impressive, honestly. In the stream, they mentioned that part of the dance animations are actually mo-capped and then cleaned up with some animation work, which just shows the depth of how far some of these things will go in Ashes of Creation. From what we learned about dances, they appear to be much more limited, shorter radius skill sets, things that you can be used in addition to your melodies. But it's really going to be interesting from a gameplay style, like not just the how pretty shiny things, but from a gameplay style, how these dances work in conjunction with your melodies. Because the overwhelming feeling I was getting from this bard was how these things kind of are all designed in a way that they'll work together, but designed in a way where you are able to move about the battlefield as a bard and kind of assess the situations going on throughout the battle and help where needed. Is there a shield over here? Do you need to debuff over here? What do you need to do to be the best bard support that you possibly can? And some of that support, which should be music to the ears of fans of EverQuest, might actually be CC. To round out the Bard's kit, there will be CC, as in yes, mez or incapacitate, as well as buffs and debuffs through both melodies and dances. If you look over the abilities of the Ashes of Creation wiki, It reads like what you'd expect from a bard. Attack speed buffs, minor heals, movement speed, a few damage abilities here and there, stuns, increased crit chance, etc. Honestly, everything I saw about this bard looks pretty great. In PvE, it sounds like it will not just be fun to play with them, but also fun to play as them. In PvP, I can already see bards being kind of rage-inducing with their CC and movement speed, but hey, at least they've now got diminishing returns in game for CC. Balancing Ashes of Creation is probably going to be a nightmare. I'm not going to lie. I do not envy that team at all. Balancing PvP and PvP in general is a nightmare. World of Warcraft has been trying to do it for 20 years now. Final Fantasy XIV gave up on it so much they just changed the abilities you have in PvP. But there's a final function of the Bard I really wanted to talk about. It's essentially their ultimate ability called Saga, which is built off the use of themes. The themes of comedy, mystery, or tragedy. Essentially, you stack up your themes with a short duration buff for your group. For example, using the story of chaos to increase your magical crit chance for your party by about 15% for 30 seconds, which also generates one theme of tragedy. Once you have 3 themes of tragedy, you can complete your saga.
Only you can prevent. Oh my god! Oh, that looks so awesome.
This may be one of the cooler and perhaps even more unique parts of the Bard, as it provides a sort of World of Warcraft rogue-esque combo system by stacking these stories for one larger finale. But at the same time, the Ashes of Creation Bard doesn't feel really revolutionary in any one specific way, but it also never needed to be. It looks like some of the best bards from MMOs past, with a few tweaks here and there to make it fit better with Ashes of Creation's archetypes and their playstyle. It looks like it could very easily find its way into the upper echelons of bards of the past that became a beloved class for so many, a quirky class for so many. Honestly, the only thing I'm a bit sad about is something that they did with instruments, because you see, they made instruments a cosmetic choice, rather than using instruments as an important equipable item. Something I thought EverQuest actually did very well when they first started, but then completely and utterly abandoned the use of instruments by putting the same bonuses on things like weapons and armor. There's something special in connecting the Bard with an instrument, and that instrument being a functional choice on how best to kit out your Bard based on bonuses, such as run speed boost from using drums in EverQuest, or healing boost for using a lute. But perhaps that is something they could consider in the future, instead of, focusing on the weapon type, but instead giving an alternative thing where you could enhance the strength of your songs through instruments instead of just making them cosmetic. I don't know that they will. It's probably just me dreaming there, but it's something I love so much about the early EverQuest Bard, where you had to make a decision between dual wielding 2 weapons, or a weapon plus an instrument, or just an instrument, really deciding this is what I'm gonna do, and doing so increasing the potency of your songs by like 100%, 200%. It really made you think critically about what is the best thing you can do in that decision from an equipment standpoint. Plus, it just added another chase item to go after, like the drums of Mistmore, the drums off the legendary Nagi. Am I getting that right? Is it Nagi? Someone will tell me down in the comments if I got it wrong or not. But there were drums, important drums. And all that to say, though, Ashes is going at bards a little bit of a different way, a more all-encompassing idea of the fantasy of the bard. Not just a musical instrument type bard, but also a bard that tells stories, a storytelling bard. How they tell story through dance, how their ultimate ability is tied to themes that would be represented in a play or in a book. Basically, bards in Ashes of Creation are simply just not one note. I'm going to see myself out. But seeing is one thing and playing is completely different. And it looks like we'll actually get our hands on and experience it pretty damn soon, with October not that far away. A month where perhaps I'll get to answer my biggest concern about Ash the Creation. The thing that makes me worry that all of this excellent stuff they're doing, all of the ways that they're trying to balance classes, all of the beautiful animations, the world, the nodes, the seasons, everything they're doing, the storytelling that they're doing, which sounds really interesting, might still struggle under the weight of this one thing. One thing that I think could still potentially hurt their ability to reach a broad audience, or even if they go too far the other way, hurt their ability to meet their target audience. And you can see all about my concerns in this video right here. Go hurry over there and tell me how wrong I am, because maybe you can convince me.